you can find a space where you can almost rise above it. And I think the way to do that is to think about the fact that one day you're going to die, one day all this is going to end.
Mhm.
And suddenly those things that seem really important, and some of them are really important, but some of the things that you thought were important actually turn out to be not that important.
Welcome to our latest episode of Book Reporter Talks To, where I'm so happy to have our guest today, Ben Reeves, and we are going to be talking about his debut novel, Everything Was Beautiful and Nothing Hurt. I confess that I always have to look the title up because I don't remember the words in the right order, which is an instant New York Times bestseller, and that is a really big deal these days. I first heard Ben talk about this book during a Simon Selects event that was held for booksellers a couple of months ago, and the plot was so unique that I couldn't wait to read it. Here's what our reviewer, Rebecca Monroe, had to say about it. Everything was beautiful and nothing hurt is a balm, a salve, a gift. And perhaps most potently at all, it's an urgent reminder to do the thing that you wish on your deathbed you could have done one last time. And yes, it leaves you with that feeling and so many more. So, welcome, Ben. It's so nice to have you here.
Hi, Carol. Thanks for having me.
So, how about if you tell us about Everything Was Beautiful and Nothing Hurt?
Sure. I'm going to try and do it in a different way to how I normally do it because find myself describing it in the same way over and over.
Yeah.
Um, so this book sort of asks the question, what if the Grim Reaper was just a normal guy? So he's called Travis and he lives in an apartment building, and being death is almost like his job. He spends time with people before they die, whether it's old people or someone who's tragically ill or got into some kind of accident. He is there at the end of everybody's life. He's there to spend time with them, listen to them, and ultimately, hopefully, make them feel comfortable before they pass on. He's not like this. He's not grim. He's not, morbid. Really, he's kind of this sweet guy, and he's also lonely because of who he is. He doesn't want to make too many friends
Mhm.
because obviously every single person he knows how they're going to die and when they're going to die. So he avoids relationships beyond his job as death. That is until he meets this little family who live across the hall from him,
Mhm.
a single mother called Dahlia, who's a midwife, and her two little girls. And he, against his better judgment, he can't help himself but just fall in love with this little family and slowly pursue it and see where things go, even though he knows he probably shouldn't be doing that. And it's a sad book. It's got a lot of death in it. It is sad, but hopefully also makes us think about life a bit more. Um, it's
Mhm.
set in the modern day. It's not really fantastical. It's sort of I'd call it general fiction or
Yeah,
literary
yeah,
fiction,
yeah,
and it's just for anybody who wants to just think a bit more about life and death and just have an emotional experience, hopefully.
yeah. I agree, and it's really about thinking about life more. By the time you're finishing the
Yeah.
book, you're sitting there saying, "Am I really doing what I want to do? Am I
Mm.
really thinking in the right directions? Where am I spending my time? Am I spending my time on things I love? Am I spending time
Yeah.
on things I hate? How can I change that? How can I change that? And what can I do?" So, is there anything that inspired you to write it?
Yeah, a few things. So death is always something that the things that you just said, that's how my mind always has worked. I'm always sort of thinking, am I using my time to the best of my ability? Could I have spent yesterday better than I did? Did I really have to get moody about that silly thing that happened? Or, you know, could I have been nicer to that person? And I'm always kind of thinking about that and sort of kind of worrying about it. And I wanted to unpack that through a story. I wanted to think about how we can almost like wake up because we get so caught up in our day-to-day
Mhm.
troubles, and obviously we do all have troubles, but almost you can find a space where you can almost rise above it. And I think the way to do that is to think about the fact that one day you're going to die, one day all this is going to end.
Mhm.
And suddenly those things that seem really important, and some of them are really important, but some of the things that you thought were important actually turn out to be not that important.
Mhm.
Um, and especially, I don't know, I've always had various brushes with death. I haven't got any grandparents left. My wife hasn't got any grandparents left. Um, and to see that and um, just to sort of witness a lot of mortality, and to have two small kids myself, it just made me think about all of this stuff, and I wanted to express it. I never wanted the book to be like didactic and point at people and
Mm-mm,
say, right, this is how you should live your life. This
yeah.
is my expression of what I think's important, and people can get from it whatever they can.
Yeah, wherever they can and what they're going to take away. And you know, it is true because people do spend time saying, especially as people get older, do I really like this job? Am I
Yeah,
doing this? There's an expression, you stop working when you have enough or you've had enough.
right.
And
Yeah,
I love what I do, and I'm not in that position. It's about more than money. It's more than happiness and fulfillment and things like that. And it's interesting because so much of our lives are predicated on how much money you make, what kind of
yeah.
job you have, this, that, the other thing. And meanwhile, you're really talking about experiences. You're really talking about what are these people are looking back? What are they thinking about? And it's usually not one person in this book was thinking about money.
No,
No.
no. And in fact, the one guy in the book who has kind of got a bit of money, he's got a Lamborghini, he kind of regrets it all. He's got a big house and he's like, well, but what? Like my kids are grown up, they've left. I don't see them very much. And he's sort of realized that actually money didn't solve it all. And I think we kind of know that deep down, but it's sometimes it's not easy to remember that.
Yeah.
My best friend, literally just before I came on here, he told me that he wants to quit his job because he's just kind of had enough. The job has changed over time, and he
Mhm.
he said he would much rather just get a smaller, simpler, almost like menial job because he can still do the things that he loves on the side. And I was like, great, that's amazing. Like,
Mhm.
well done. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
A job. It's nice if you can enjoy a job, but actually you can enjoy the most simple things if you just pay attention and sort of savor it. My job, so my day job, I'm a coder. I
Mhm.
make websites and things like that, and that can be boring and that can be very analytical and not creative in any way. But then I don't know, you can kind of lose yourself in any task if you just
Mhm.
really savor it and pay attention to it. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, but as you say, money, no, money's not. Obviously, money is really important because
Right.
you need to live and you need to be able
Yes.
to provide for yourself and for possibly for other people. Um, but I think you just need enough, don't you?
It's when is enough? When is enough? And it's interesting you talk about being like a coder and what you're doing, how much that business has changed. I mean, we started
Yeah,
our site 30 years ago
yeah,
on Drupal. Like, I mean, no, actually, we were on AOL, and then you move to this, and like how things have changed right now, and the keeping up of figuring out what to do with that has changed exponentially as well. Of what you can
yeah,
do, and it's in some ways it's easier, in some ways it's harder, and it's what you
yeah.
want to do for.
Exactly, and I think with any kind of job, it's good to show like what your unique skills are because obviously lots of people can code, but I think what my company really gets from me is that I actually care and I've got ideas and I show that I'm actually trying to get my hands dirty. I want to see how does this work and maybe we could make this better. Like I think I didn't think we'd get onto this by the way
Yeah,
in
but
this
no, but it's
conversation.
interesting because this is
Yeah,
about life. This
yeah,
is about
exactly.
life. This is about looking back and saying, I didn't just do a job, I contributed to a job. And I think that
Yeah.
that's a lot of what that's what I walked away from the book thinking about is you think about not death as much as you think about life and
Mm,
am I living the life that I did? So yeah, and I sort of brought you that way too. I brought you into talking about,
yeah.
you know. Um, did you always know that Travis was going to come in to these people's lives? Like, was that there from the start, or was it added as time went on?
Yeah, that was definitely there from the start. I knew I wanted to tell a story where there is a guy who is deaf, and I wanted him to spend time with lots of different people. What came a bit later was his sort of personality, and what does it mean? What does my version of death look like? What does that mean to be deaf? And I didn't want to answer all the questions in the book of like where he came from, how he knows who's going to die, where people go after they die. I didn't want to sort of get into that. I wanted that to be almost personal to the reader and left to your imagination. But what sort of emerged was this idea of he is this guy who he can't help but just pay attention to every tiny detail everywhere, all the
Hmm.
time. Things that we would miss, just the tiniest things, a crisp packet just brushing across the road, we just wouldn't even think about it, but he's aware of it and he's aware of what's going on in that house over there and that house over there and what's happening in that car. And it's almost too much for him to take sometimes. So we're sort of focused in on this one town. But there's this sense that there's a lot more going on that we're not privy to.
Yeah, and there are moments where you do it of he's thinking about this and that and the other thing of what could happen at that any a moment. And he watches people, he's visiting men, women, and children who come to understand his presence. Like they come to
Yeah.
understand there's a reason why you're here. Did you plan each of the characters and who they were going to be? I mean, we'll get back to talking about this little family, but there's a person like this and there's a person like that. Did you have those all thought about in advance, or as you started to write, did you formulate them?
I wrote a list. I pretty early on, I had a list of like I wanted them to all be kind of different in their own ways. So I was like, well, okay, let's have a rich guy who's like got regrets. Let's have maybe someone who doesn't look after themselves very much, drinks and smokes too much and stuff. Let's have a really young person because that young people die as well, and let's have a sick person and things like that. And I sort of wrote this list and. Um, I'd actually just, of an evening, I'd just kind of pick one. I'd be like, right, it's this one tonight. I'm feeling this one tonight, and I'd just sit down and write it. And by the end of the night, I'd have a pretty good scene. And then because it's quite a short book,
Mhm. Mhm.
a few months of doing that, and you've got something that you can really work with.
Mhm.
And then there's obviously the overall story of Travis weaving all this together.
Leaving it all together. And also, when you die, you note their name and their age. So it's this
Yeah,
very definitive thing. You don't even have to just like, this is his name and this is how old he
yeah,
was. And you don't need to know anything more. You knew it in that paragraph, and that's all you're going to know, or that page of all you're going to know. You first take us to this single car crash, and there's this 20-year-old guy who's been drinking, he's been doing drugs and everything, and he's driving. And we learn, like in these couple of minutes, and it's early in the book, that his girlfriend is pregnant. He's never going to see the baby. He didn't get to ask her to marry him. All this stuff, like all these regrets, just come to him really quickly. And I feel that we see the regret that this man has. Did you know, like, that was a great opener? That was a great opener to the book because it's really opening somebody's eyes of like, wow, he's gonna screw it all up.
yeah. I think so. I was pretty happy with it. It's a strange scene because it's quite different from the rest of the book. It's kind of
Yes.
dark. Travis does some things that he doesn't do throughout the rest of the book. I wanted to show really early on that Travis, he's not a normal guy. There's something special about him, and we learn quite quickly that he's death. He slows time down to where it almost stops, and we sort of through that one scene, hopefully we get a sense of okay, he can do things that other people can't do, and I, I I think I find regret particularly sad
Hmm.
because it's too late. You often can't change a regret. It's a regret and that's it. You can't go back and change it. That seems particularly tragic to me, more tragic than even just like shame or things that can be fixed, but regret just seems so tragic and to open with that and particularly a young guy I wanted it to be sensitive. I wanted to show that Travis is, he's sort of soothing this young man, and
Hmm.
I think he rests his head in his lap and just talks to him. And yeah, I wanted to really give a sense very early on of what kind of person Travis is, so that we get it throughout the rest of the book.
Yeah, it's not the devil. It's not mean. It's not any of these things. It's somebody who's
No,
taking you to along of what you're going to do. So he meets Dahlia, this neighbor from across the hall, and her lovely, precocious daughter, who I absolutely loved, and Layla. And he starts to see life in a different way. And this mother is she is a midwife. She's got two children. She's got two children with two different men. Neither man is in her life. There's a lot of like, wait a second, who is this person? And all of a sudden, the little girl starts calling him. Can you come across the hall? Can you stay with me? Can you do this? And it's kind of like inviting death into your life,
yeah.
see what your life is. And I found that was such an interesting way because we already know who he is, and you're going to bring him in. Did you know that that's where you're going to bring a family in, like right from the start?
Well, so that's interesting, yeah, because obviously they don't know that he's death. The reader, we know, but they don't. You don't find out that he's death until it's your time to go. Um, I definitely wanted an overall story. So
Mhm.
obviously there's lots of these vignettes of,
Yeah.
he's with this guy and now he's with this woman and things like
Mhm.
that. But I wanted this overall story. And I thought long and hard about like, okay, if he is essentially the Grim Reaper, what journey can I take him on? Because what we really love about stories is to see a main character change.
Mhm.
We want to start one way and end another way, and in a way, that's what a story is. It's this arc of change. If things are the same at the end as they were at the beginning, there's kind of what was the point? So I was like, well, okay, so what would his journey be? And I think it would be this thing of like he's very solitary, but ever so slowly he ingratiates himself with his family and learns some things that maybe he didn't realize or maybe he forgot a long time ago. And through he almost takes on the role of a father figure in
Mhm.
that family. He's really good with the kids and he's very kind to Dahlia and they do lots of things. You know, they have dinner together and they go to the park and he's very much he knows he's being silly because he shouldn't be there. He shouldn't be doing these things, but he kind of yearns for it. He kind of he just wants it. He'd love a normal life like what we have. Like he would just love to just be a person in a regular life, but he just can't. But he's almost like addicted to this feeling of spending time with his family, and I think that's compelling to read. It's because you want to kind of see where that goes, I think.
Yeah, see where it goes, what he does with them and whatever. And it's interesting because Dahlia's a midwife, so she's bringing life into the world while he's ushering it out. So it was interesting to have those two different sides. And she's had times where there's a child born and there's a problem and death comes quickly and all these things. So they understand each other's lives in a lot of ways
Yeah,
that he doesn't understand really who he is, but
yeah,
he understands her. He sees also what's going to happen to someone who grieves afterwards, because if you stick around, you see grieving and you see the other side of what's going on. And that person often pushes you away because they like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want you to try to help me. You're here to try to help. And no, I don't want that anymore. Not knowing what the relationship really is between them. And I found that very interesting as well, of staying there afterwards and seeing what happens. And I'm not giving you, I'm
yeah.
not giving
Yeah,
anything.
exactly. I wanted to spend a lot of the second half of the book thinking about what happens afterwards, you know, the people who
Mhm.
are left behind, the grief side of it, because grief is a huge part of death and
Mhm.
it's really not glamorous and it's just, you know, so painful and kind of almost revolting at times. It's just the most horrible thing for anybody to have to go through is grief, and I definitely wanted to show that side of the coin, and almost show how Travis kind of doesn't understand grief.
Mhm.
He he hasn't lost anyone.
Mhm.
He's had to see everyone out. See, he
Mhm.
hasn't had that personal experience of just losing someone that he cared about. Um, but maybe he is, and maybe in the second half of the book he kind of is, and he's starting to really understand what impact he has on other people's lives by
Yeah.
taking people away. And that was, yeah, that I actually really like the second half of the book, maybe more than the first half, because I loved kind of exploring that side of it. It's emotional and um, yeah, I think people deal with grief in different ways as well. There's a funeral quite early on in the second half of the book,
Mhm.
and it's some grown up kids and their mums died, and they're kind of laughing and joking, and it's not disrespectful. It's just they're a kind of jokey family, and
Yeah.
they're having fun, and they're remembering their mum,
Yeah.
and I wanted to kind of show that and show that actually everybody's different, everybody deals with it differently, and that's
Mhm.
kind of okay.
Yeah. It's like your family doesn't change from who you are. If you're a joking
No,
family before, you're not going to be, changed later on.
yeah,
And if so many people fear death. My dad is 96, he'll be 97 in September. All but one of his childhood friends have died, which is really, I mean, he actually said last year it was his best friend whose wife had introduced him to my mother, like very close people. And he went to the wake and he said, I cannot do the funeral. I can't go. And
right,
when that woman, the guy's wife, passed away, he couldn't go. I just can't deal. And it was interesting because I thought he'd want to go and honor that person, but I
mm,
think it becomes too close. Like it becomes too close of what's going on. But I often try to see the world through his eyes. Like this man was born in 1929. He lived through the Depression, the war, Korea. Like just so many things have happened during that time. And it's hard when people you shared memory with are gone. Like anybody who's on his kind of plane is not like on the runway anymore. They've like, they've taken off. And it's really like I'm trying to think of how he sees the world sometimes when we get together because it's such a different place even over the last 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. I mean, the 20th century, I mean, yeah, to be born like quite early on in the 20th century and see like everything from space travel to TV to the internet to
Yes.
9/11, like my God, and smartphones and everything. It's just such a bizarre period of history. I find it absolutely fascinating, just how much things have changed and how much are things going to continue to change. Who knows,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we're 97.
Yeah, because I'll sit there and I just like there's an age where if you didn't, like they say with kids, you started to use the smartphone and then it changed your life. There's a whole group of people that never learned how to use it and they have a completely different life than what
Yeah,
we have
yeah.
because they don't log on. And it really troubles me when sometimes they'll say, you have to put your password in. And I'm like, that is so alien to what's going on. Or could you give us, we're going to text you this. And I'm like, you can't do that. It's like something
Yeah,
that people don't even understand. And I think that what you bring out in the book is this one woman who was waiting, like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm 89. Can I go now? Like,
yeah,
here, I'm ready to go. And you bring in, she's not sad about it. She's, yeah,
yeah. I wanted to explore that as well. Just someone who's ready. A lot of the people in the book aren't ready, but she is, and um, I wanted to, yeah, show that kind of feeling of just clinging on, or just you feel like your time has come, but it's lingering, and her husband died a few years previous to before the book, and she's just ready to go. She's done everything she wants to do, but it's just not her time yet. And
yeah,
she's almost a bit mad at Travis. She's like, "Well, come on. Is why do you keep visiting me? Is this the day or what? Can't you keep having cups of tea with me? Why are you here? But
yeah.
there's a sense of Travis. He visits some people more than others.
Hmm.
Sometimes it'll be weeks in advance, just helping people. He kind of takes on different roles. So one minute he'll be kind of like almost an attorney. There's one where he's a cleaner and he helps clean this guy's house, and he is whatever that person needs or what he feels they need. So
Hmm.
yeah,
This woman just doesn't want to see those 90 candles. We did that for both of the grandmother, grandfather birthdays, and all three of them, it's like the smoke alarm was going to go off. You
yeah,
put those 90 candles and you're lighting them in the kitchen with like a flame. My
that's
husband came out, you
crazy.
get like a flame torch, and that's the fastest way to do it. And I said,
Yeah,
okay, we did that three times, So yeah, it's really interesting. And it's like, will we get to 100? And will it be quality life? That's the whole thing is
yeah.
get to a point where your life is just getting up in the morning and doing things. And I think you make people think about that in the same way throughout the book. It's live every minute.
Yeah,
So
it's
go ahead. I'm sorry.
sorry. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, but was there any inspiration for her? Was there any inspiration for any of the characters or her?
Yeah, yeah, I think they all kind of come from somewhere. My nan, she was like she was kind of like the queen of the family. Everybody looked up to her. She had like 8 kids, and each of those 8 kids, I've got a lot of cousins and a lot of aunts and uncles. So I remember we used to always have these big dinners, like maybe once a year. And she was like at the head of the table, and she was like this matriarch, and that was really nice. I miss her. Um, John Lamb, the old man near the beginning. There's a guy that I pass a lot when I'm walking to work, and I don't even know his name, but he always says good morning. I say good morning to him. Um, the rich guy who kind of has regrets. He's based on a real rich person in England. I won't say his name, but he used to be the world's strongest man, and I just thought that was interesting. Like to be the world's strongest man, but then you're old and you can't lift anything anymore. They all kind of come from somewhere, or just things I've thought about. Like maybe I'd see like a hoarder on TV, someone who's just a shut in and they've collected all this stuff, and I find that kind of fascinating, and I wanted to put some of that in there. Um, lots of tiny little touches that are from real life. There's a bit where a guy jumps in front of a train. It's just a real short paragraph, but that was real. I saw that
Mhm.
at Peterborough Station a few years ago. That was not very nice.
No. Well,
And
they
then
don't think
there's
about the people behind in that situation. They're jumping. They're
yeah,
thinking
yeah,
about the people standing on the platform. They're not thinking about who's going to clean this up at all. It's
yeah.
so
The
one-sided.
desperation.
Yeah.
yeah. It's that was such a strange moment, very very surreal. One minute everything's normal, and then the next minute this guy's just starfished in front of a train. Um, yeah, very 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 strange. But yeah, I think as a writer, you kind of got to take things inspiration where you can.
Hmm.
The whole location in that book is very much set where I live, which
Hmm.
was wonderful because I could really get those details down that you wouldn't just be able to pluck out of thin air. They're real and you can feel them, and that was really nice because I've never written a book where I live before.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of it's real.
the setting felt very, very real. Very, very real. Okay, you handle your dialogue with just dashes instead
Mm.
of quote marks. Reason for it?
Yeah, some people hate it. Some people, I don't read many reviews, but one thing that my wife told me crops up a lot is people hate that. I suppose, so a few reasons. One is that a lot of the conversations in the book are just two people.
Hmm.
So it's Travis and someone else. So to keep saying he said, she said, it just seemed unnecessary. I know that it's Travis and then the other person, Travis and then the other person. Like it's I think it's quite easy. A lot of books that I like do that. I can't, not many are springing to mind. Maybe like Irvin Welsh or I'm sure Faulkner does it sometimes. Um, I kind of find it really pretty. There's something about
Hmm.
speech marks that as soon as I write speech marks in my document, it's like, oh, okay, I'm just doing whatever everybody else does. There's something about them that almost feels too conventional. I think convention's fine, but with speech marks in particular, it's like, well, the only time we use speech marks is for speech, whereas like you can use a comma anywhere, you can use a full stop anywhere, but
Okay.
the only time we use speech marks is for speech. So it almost feels just a bit ugly to
Yeah.
me. I don't know.
Well,
I'm writing a new book and it's got speech marks in it, so
she'll take that back out. Well,
yeah.
it's interesting though for an audiobook, and we're going to talk a little about the audio later on. The person who's doing the audiobook has to say, so and so, he said, so and so, she
Yeah.
said, this, that. I think about that a lot with the
Mm.
audiobook because instead of it just being dialogue, he said with a very excited voice, he said with this. And audio has become such a big thing over really the last 5 years or whatever that you're out recording these. And I said, oh my gosh, she said with a smile. She did with the this. And I'm but it's a lot of he said, she said going back and forth. And I'm
Yeah,
like, wow, there's no I was listening. I was like, there's no he said, she said. Kind of nice.
I didn't actually think about that, but yeah, I like that. It's more of a, you're listening to this drama unfolding rather than it's almost being narrated to you. Yeah, that's not something I thought about. But Mike, who did the voiceover, I did listen to a bit of it the other night, and what a great job he did.
Yeah, he did a really good job.
Yeah,
I really, really enjoyed that. You know, okay, so he says, everyone knows who I am and why I'm come. Everyone knows at the end. So even if he spent all this time with you at the end, people know what's really going to happen. An interesting concept. Instead of like, just all along, it's like, wait a second, why are you here? That.
yeah, yeah. I liked the idea that actually, when it's your time and you see him, you know who he is and why he's come, and I
Mhm.
could kind of play with that a little bit, and so that there'll be a character who maybe doesn't know who he is immediately, but then finds out and maybe feels a little bit betrayed. Why you've been here this whole time and now you suddenly I find out who you are. Yeah, and I liked the idea that he's almost like this everyman. You could just pass him on the street and you
Mhm.
wouldn't know, but
Mhm.
but that day when it's your time, you'll know.
You'll know. You'll know. And okay, there's a chapter called Dance of the Mayflies. Talk to us about that and why that's there because it's different.
Yeah,
It's different from
it
the other chapters, you know?
it is different. So there are little passages throughout the book that have got nature in them. We see like a worm crawling from possibly from a bird. We see two deer in the woods.
Mhm.
We see all kinds of little snippets of nature because there's this sense that Travis can see all these things while the human stories are happening. But mayflies are particularly interesting to me. They spend a lot of their time underwater, a lot of their lives as nymphs underwater in the dark, at the bottom of a silty pond or whatever for months, sometimes years. And then on one day, they just all burst out, and it's like this crazy cloud of excitement of all these mayflies bumping into each other in the air and tangling and mating, just for one day, and they dance and they mate, and then they die, or they lay their eggs and then they die, or get eaten by frogs, and just all in one day. And and they've been waiting like this whole time under the water for this. And I just thought it was the most beautiful metaphor. I was just reading about it. It doesn't sound very glamorous, but I was just reading about it on Wikipedia, and I was like, that's a lot of other writers have used the mayfly as a kind of symbol for death. And I thought, yeah, it's perfect, absolutely beautiful analogy of life and death.
In life, in death, it's over. It's one day.
Yeah,
It's
just
one
quick.
day.
And but there's a real that chapter's like feels like a real celebration. You know,
Yes.
you're not thinking about the death. You're thinking about this excitement and all this buzz, and it's and just like, yeah, we're here. We're alive. Let's go, you know?
And them being so happy to be doing this, like, oh,
Yeah.
we're finally out of the water. We're
Yeah.
finally doing this. This is great. That chapter was beautiful. The last chapter, the 20-minute gift. Ooh, if everybody can just take that, if there's no other reason for somebody to read this book, it's that chapter. And you're going to sit there and read that, and it's going to be the kind of thing you want to put up on a wall. It's the kind of thing where you want to do like embroidery about it or stitch work or whatever, because you're going to want to sit there and say, yeah, that's really what it is. And I really love that it does take a minute to read it, and you got 19 left. And
Yeah.
think about what you're going to do. Very, very poignant.
Thank you.
Very, very poignant. So, this is your debut novel getting published. I read someplace that you actually wrote the story to be part of a competition. So, walk us back onto your writing life before what we're seeing right now.
Okay. So yeah, I wrote this novel in 2023. It was kind of, I was thinking about it for a couple of months in the summer of 2023, and then in September I was like, right, let's write it then. Um, and I felt like it was quite slow, but it couldn't have been because by December that year I was done,
Yeah.
basically done. And I think part of the reason I wanted to get through it quite quickly was because I knew that this competition was coming up at the start of 2024, and I wanted to enter it. I wanted to enter it on the first day. I wanted to be in that inbox and say, like, here's my novel. And I did. I posted it on the first day that it opened, and didn't think much of it, to be honest. I was like, well, that's that. I did it. Yay. And I sent the book out to some agents as well. And um, by this time, I've been writing for 20 years and not got anywhere. So that it was really almost a formality of just, I love writing. I'm always going to write. But I'll send it out just in case anybody's interested. And later on in 2024, I think it was maybe August, they said, right, we're announcing the winners. I was like, do you know, it'd be really nice to just get shortlisted. That'd be really cool. And I remember clicking on the link and seeing my name and my face, winner. And I just cried my eyes out. And out of all the wonderful things that have happened with this book, being an instant New York Times bestseller and getting deals and all sorts of international deals, that was the moment where I just everything just burst out of me because it was the first moment of recognition. I was like, okay, I did a good thing that
Yeah.
people really liked. And it all just went from there. We got a UK deal, and then the UK deal sort of followed to a US deal, and then I think there's about 10 other countries, and it's all just it's all been a whirlwind. But I'm sort of very zen about all that. It was the winning the competition
Yeah.
was the eye opener.
It was the Bath Novel Award. That's what
It
it was.
was, yeah,
I went
and
back and I looked. Yeah.
the book
And
was called Dance of the Mayflies from that
from
chapter.
that, that's what it was called there.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so it gets sold in the UK, comes over to the United States. When did the title change? When did they do that? Was that at what point?
So quite early, my agent was like, "I don't like the title." I was like, "Okay, that's fair enough," because it's kind of almost a bit of a wishy-washy title. I think seeing that on a shelf, you might not think much of it. So the working title was horrible, but we just had it as a working title, which was "Death and the Midwife."
Hmm.
Which it was a good working title in that it sort of gives you a sense straight away. Okay, this is about death and a midwife. So we pitched it with that. The UK publisher Atlantic Books took it on, and then they were like, "Right, we've been thinking about the title. We don't like Death and the Midwife either. Have you got any more?" And I had about 10 that I sort of thought about. I think there was one that was just A Wanderer. So all of the titles like A something, A Fearless Boy, A Rolling Boy, a Helmet Head, and I thought A Wanderer could be Travis,
Mhm.
because he wanders a lot. There was some others in there, but one of them was everything was beautiful and nothing hurt. And it was sort of a little bit tongue in cheek because that is a quite a famous and beloved line, and it's a bit cheeky to use it because people already really love that line. But I love it, and I love Kurt Vonnegut that it's taken from Slaughterhouse-Five, and there is a long standard tradition of using other quotes from other books as your book title. So
Mhm.
of Mice and Men,
Right.
Something Wicked This Way Comes. It's loads and loads and loads. Um, so I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it because that book's so much about death, and the the beauty and brevity of life. I hope that I've done that title justice
Yes.
and given it something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really interesting because I said, like I said, I always have to look it up. I always have to, there's some reason. And I'll just sit there, like when I was writing these questions, my pages, I just went blank. And then I said, I'll just go back at the end because I do not remember the title. And every time I
Yeah.
go to look it up, I'm like, oh, I'm trying to look around now. I'm like, luckily your name is easy, Ben Reeves, so I can go
Yeah.
look you up. But that's me. I mean, but when I'm in a book, it was interesting because I always think of the man, the girl, the boy, the like I don't put names to people. So it
Yeah.
was so interesting for me because I didn't need to know the names of a lot of the people. I just need to know their situation. And
Sure.
you remember that situation in and out. Does the manuscript different? Did that change a lot along the way or tighten or
I wouldn't say it changed a lot. It felt like we'd put a lot of work into it, but I honestly think if you read the original draft that I entered the competition with and compared it to this draft, it's really not that different. There were no major changes, just little bits of tightening things up. The editors, they worked really hard and they completely got the book and it was all really good. I think one of the biggest changes, which I don't actually like to say, but because I don't want it to affect how people see the book, but Dahlia was a slightly worse mother
oh, okay. Hmm.
in the original draft. I bet it just made her a bit too. You couldn't empathize with her as much, You're like,
Hmm.
why is she not a very nice mum? And it's kind of more meaningful, I think, if she's actually a pretty good mum who tries quite hard.
Yeah.
And so that was, yeah, I think that was a good change.
Especially since the dads weren't writing so hard. Like
Yeah,
it's all on her. The dads weren't
yeah,
like helping her out at all. Has there been any film interest in the book?
there has, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. A couple of studios actually had a real good chat with someone yesterday. I can't disclose anything yet, but I'm pretty sure we'll be signing that. Great chat just about casting and locations. Like, there's just a dream come true. Absolutely amazing studio. I think they can make a really special film out of
And
it.
what I love is it's characters, it's character
Mm,
driven, not place driven. So the scenes for it, and I always think about this when I'm thinking about what can work book to film these days, is the setting is not the biggest thing. The biggest thing is the people.
yeah,
And the characters of playing him and all the other characters are going to have to be strong, but they're not long parts. They're there for a day.
yeah, yeah.
You're
It's
shooting
true.
quick. You're shooting, I don't know. I always think about the film part of it as well because it's a town. It's constructed. It's like where you live. And so there's an apartment where they spend a lot of time and his apartment. And I'm thinking about that a lot more these days because people are not looking to make these things where the war goes on for 40 years. I mean,
No,
yes, the Odyssey's there, but there's not going to be a lot of Odyssey. There's not a
no.
lot of that happening out there right now. And I was thinking about it as I was reading it, and I was like, you're going to meet a character, but you're not there that long. And then you move on.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. We did speak about that because there's probably slightly too many vignettes in the book to put in a feature-length film.
Hmm.
There'll be ones that we'll probably have to cut or shorten or even sort of almost show across a montage kind of thing.
Right.
But we'll pick out the ones that probably affect the story the most,
Yes.
because Travis does subtly change from each of them, even in really subtle ways that it affects the direction of how he's feeling in some way. So yeah, it'll be important to make sure that it feels less like a series of short stories and this one journey. But that'll be a lot of fun. That's going to be great.
It's
And
gonna be great.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think hopefully I'm going to get some involvement in that as well. And yeah, it's very exciting. That's going to be
It's all
great.
very different. When you think about it, 2003 to now, 3 years. Boom. Who knew?
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
knew?
I have to pinch myself sometimes.
Yeah. There was also a cover change somewhere along the way as well. And I love this cover. The other cover worked, but this one says more. Let's pull it down.
Yeah.
and it just says more than the other cover. And we've got flower, we've got a cat, a
Yep.
moon, and the sun.
Do you want me to grab the other cover?
Yes, if you
Yeah.
could, that'd be fabulous. Thank you.
So this was the original.
Yes, this is the one.
Um, yeah, I kind of like both of them.
Mhm.
The main reason we changed it, I actually got a call from my editor quite late at night, and she said Barnes and Noble really like the book, but they don't like the cover.
Uh-huh.
So you've got about 15 minutes to decide, Ben. Do you want Barnes and Noble on your side and change the cover, or do you want to keep the cover and maybe they don't like it? And I was like, do you know what? It's nice to have Barnes and Noble on your side, and I liked the other cover as well. So
Yeah.
it was all good. Um, I worry a little bit with the new cover that it's ever so slightly too fantastical, or gives a slight sense that it's more fantastical than it actually is. But I think it works. I think
It
it works
works.
well.
I think the buzz around the book works. Also, it's a short book in a season where there's a lot of very long books.
Yeah.
That is super helpful at this point as well. The other cover, if you can just hold it up for 1 second, I think also looked a lot like there's a Jay McInerney cover out that's got that cover in it. I've got it in the other room. And I was thinking of that when I looked at this the other day on the floor. And I was like, wait a second, that looks a lot like that.
Yeah.
You don't know where they're thinking. Like they're seeing everything at some point, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
But I don't know. I think it's a really great cover. I think that it's the kind of thing where people are going to talk about the book, and that's what we want to do on our site. I mean, we did the review. We're going to do this interview. I'm picking this book reporter Bets On. We'll talk about that another week. So it's, sort of bringing people to the book from all different angles. We
Yeah.
did a lot of talking about it in our preview presentations as well.
I really appreciate it.
So the audiobook I loved. So Mike Franklin is doing is a narrator. Did you select him? Did you know right away that's who you wanted?
They gave me two options, and the other one was okay. But the other one he sounded quite old, and he sounded like he had this real kind of dramatic voice. And I was like, nah, no, that's not Travis. Obviously, Mike, he's not being Travis, he is narrating the book, but I,
Yeah.
s- I still wanted that. Mike's got this very empathetic, gentle kind of quality, which Travis was perfect for Travis, and so he then read a little bit of the book, and I was like, yes, absolutely. And but the first time I actually listened to any of the audiobook was the other day. I think it might have been yesterday, and it was a particularly emotional bit in the middle of the book, and I was like, he just nailed it.
He
He
nails
did a
it.
great
He
job.
nails it. Yeah.
It choked me up.
What I love too is he's got this measured way of speaking. He's got this measured, kind way of speaking, and
Yeah.
that's something that's bringing something different to the table as well. So, okay, we love that this is a slim book. So, what are you doing next? Do you have a next project? Because now everybody's like, "Oh, Ben Reeves, who we didn't know a year ago. Now, what's next, Ben? What are you doing? What are you, my
Yeah, no
brother,
pressure.
like,
Well, I've been thinking about this a lot. So I've written another book since then because it was 2023 that I wrote it. I wrote another one in 2024. I'm about 70% of the way through another one. Because I write about one a year. So, but the thing is, I honestly, and I'm not just trying to be modest, like there's no way I can't write a book that people like as much as they like this one. I just can't. That's not going to happen. So I sort of have to get comfortable with the idea of I can write a book that's just different. And some of the people that liked this one will like the new one, and some people won't, and maybe some new people will find the new book. I don't know. I'm really overthinking it. I just need to write the best book I can write, which I've always done, and just hope that some people like it. But they won't. They just won't like it as much as this one. I just know that for a fact, and I need to get comfortable with that.
Well, okay, so let's do this. Let's think about Chris Whitaker. He wrote We Begin at the End after he'd written another couple of books, okay? Everybody loved We Begin at the End. And then he writes All the Colors of the Dark.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different book. It's a
Mm,
completely different what's going on. And people still love it because
it's
there's
true.
something writing in the tone. There's something to, I always call it voice, tone, and attitude. I always say that a website's got to have voice, tone, and attitude. I say somebody's writing, everything. It's everything you're doing. And it's because I worked in a magazine. It was all about voice, tone, attitude.
Right.
And if you've got that there, no matter what it is, you're embedded into the book that you're doing.
Right.
And it becomes your voice, tone, and attitudes what's going to come through.
I like that. I like that. And I definitely feel like this new one has got a similar voice tone and attitude to Everything Was Beautiful. It's
Yeah.
just a kind of different. It's just a different subject matter and maybe not quite as emotional. Which yeah, I've struggled with that in my mind, thinking, oh, people cry a lot at this one, but they won't cry at my new one very much
Mhm.
because it's just not as emotional.
Mhm.
But maybe that's okay.
It'll be something different. Also, I had heard one interview where you said you had to come to the States in order to do some research for this new book, which we'd all
Yeah,
love to have you here. But
that's
just
so funny that that's got out.
yeah, but here's what's really funny. All right, now this is what I thought when I heard that though. Chris had never been to the United States to
Right.
the part where he wrote We Begin at the End. And still, with all the colors of the dark, he had not been to all those places. So I, the comedian that I am, that I had like interviewed him way at the beginning for We Begin at the End, like one of the first interviews he did. So he's coming back and he's doing this. And I said, so now you're on tour of all the places you wrote about. So are they the same thing? Or you're spending time? And he did something was down on the Outer Banks, and I'd spent a lot of time down there. I said, so is it the way you thought it would be?
Yeah. I imagine if it isn't, that'd be so strange for him.
And I was just laughing, and I was like, this is a tour of all the places you wrote about because he was
Yeah.
on this very extensive, he came over like, a number of times. So when
Yeah.
you said that you had to come to the States, I'm sitting there like, or you could call Chris and ask where he did all his
Mm.
research because he didn't do that. So it's really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm gonna be doing a road trip across from the east of America to the west because I want to see some of these places that I'm writing about.
Right,
Maybe because this book, Everything Was Beautiful, is so much about where it's, I
right.
took so much inspiration from where I live. And I had this horrible feeling, that my new book is set in America. And I had this horrible like vision of an interviewer asking me, so have you been to any of these places? And I just say, nah. I want to be able to say yes. Yeah, I saw them. All those descriptions that you're reading in that book are like from things that I've saw and felt and heard. I want it to feel real, especially in this day and age where so many things just feel a bit
Oh,
artificial.
yeah.
I want you to know that what you're reading is
I've already felt that.
real.
So here's a question for you. Did you tour here at all? Did you come here to the States and do any touring, or is
I
that on the plan?
I didn't do a tour. No, I came to New York. I came to
Right,
Pittsburgh. But New York was like a lot of signings and podcasts and
right. Did
videos
you do
and
that?
things, but not a tour. No.
No tour. Okay. If you come back in October, let me know. I got an idea for you. Okay.
Okay.
How's that sound?
Yeah, great.
Look, this has been an absolute pleasure. I know you've written a number of books before this. That's one thing we didn't talk about. And you've got this whole other, life where you are a coder. You've also enjoyed music. You enjoy so many other things. And it's interesting to find that there's a book that bubbled up. There's this book that
Yeah.
in all those nights you were writing and all those books you did before, this is the one. Same thing with the correspondent. She wrote 8 or 9 books
Yeah.
for the book that actually happened. And
Yeah, I guess when it's supposed to happen, it's supposed to happen. Like it used to frustrate me. I used to think, I'm writing these books, but they're not getting anywhere. But then looking back, it's like, well, thank God none of them did, because this is absolutely the one that should be my debut.
right.
It's so great that none of the other ones did, because I don't think they would have taken off like this one. So sometimes at the time you're like, why didn't I get that job? Why didn't I, why couldn't I get that flat? Why couldn't I get that person that I wanted to be with? But maybe, and I don't really believe in fate, but maybe it's okay because there's something else that's going to come along that will be better than the thing that you originally wanted.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we're here, we're going to get to here. Okay. And maybe those books wouldn't have been the success. And then
Yeah,
if they're not the success, then there wouldn't have been the next book. There wouldn't have
yeah.
been what's going. Now everybody's at your door, like, okay, you ready? Okay, next book, ready to go, ready to go. And the film interest is going to be fun because it's a different interpretation of a work. But
Yes.
okay, so I am heartily recommending that everybody read this, especially the chapter I spoke about. And if you read nothing else this year, I want you to read the 20-minute gift. I want you to read that page because that page, I really feel like we need to make a poster. We need to do something. We're going to do merch. Okay, we're going to do merch. We'll come up with merch. All right. So,
Okay.
Ben, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Carol. It's a pleasure.
Okay, have a lovely day. And everybody
You
else, we'll
too.
see you next time on Book Reporter Talks to.